Huh. Ooh. That's a little odd. Okay. That's a little odd. Okay. 16-second delay. Okay. 16-second delay. All right. Do it this way, I think. Hang on a second. Trying to figure out how to manage this so I don't have cognitive dissonance driving me fucking crazy. Hang on a second. Trying to figure out how to manage this. Okay. I don't have cognitive dissonance driving me crazy. All right. I've turned my sound off so I don't get any kind of an echo. I'm assuming that's all right. Somebody let me know. I've broken chat out. It's got a delay through into YouTube. This is interesting. This is streaming through Zoom. Audio's good. Okay. All right. Boy, 16-second delay. That's going to be a little interesting to see how this is going to work. Yeah, it gives me a chance to actually look at chat being broken out. No matter how fast that moves, I'll be working on a 16-second delay, so that'll impact things. Now I'm trying to get this Zoom Pro set up for a meeting I'm going to have with some people that are international. We're going to be messing about with fun with magnets and doing fun magnetic-y kind of things here, using all of our Boscovich knowledge. This is really cool stuff. This is what they use as nanites on TV shows now, is ferrofluid. They put some of this stuff in a petri dish and then move a magnet around underneath of it to have the ferrites jumping up and and hassling you, which I thought was funny as hell. But you know, you got to give the prop guys proper credit for coming up with the idea, because if you're not familiar with ferrofluid, it looks pretty spooky. All right, so it's early in the morning. I was out setting up, as I said, for business meeting. I'm going to be discussing, this is the Boscovich book, and you can see the kind of issues we've got with bad eyes and font sizes, which is why, even though I hate reading books online, or you know, in a screen format, a paging screen format, I've had to resort to that because this, you know, 3-point type. It's not really 3-point. I think it's probably 8. It's probably 8-point type. I can actually read it at a comfortable level, but not without glasses. The C60 I've been taking, which I should have brought out my little C60 container because I got to take some for this morning, has really affected the macular degeneration in my eyes, and it's rapidly withdrawing. And what I think has happened relative to the C60 is that the cancer I had caused the C60 to sort of get used up in doing other stuff. So it hasn't really started to work on my eyes until just recently. And I'm 67, I've had macular degeneration. The cancer drew my body down in a number of ways. You know, I had the muscle wasting disease that I thought was just old age and I was about ready to croak. I didn't know I had this cancer consuming me, you know, taking my blood supply and all of my energy and calories and stuff, right? It was like, no, I'm not adopting anybody. You adopt me. Anyway, so the cancer was like eroding me, and I think the C60 was responding to that. And so C60 by its nature has a tendency to prevent cancers from developing. Okay, it doesn't kill cancers per se. It's not going to cure anything, but the oh yeah, peptides are cool. But the cancers are caused by the cells getting a bit wonky in the pumps system. You got these like these pumps, biological pumps, and you've got doorways. In the cell, and you've got transfer tubes in your cell. And so what happens, what really causes cells to get wonky, not all cells, not all the time, but radiation or heavy metals or other kind of complex chemicals, because it works with very complex stuff like, you know, the stuff in Roundup, right? I mean, these complex long chain molecules that your body is just not prepared to deal with, right? So what happens is these pumps get jammed up with metal that can't exit or go through the pump to the cell, because these are two-way things. This is like a revolving door, and this gets all jammed up with material here. And then your transfer channels that let stuff back and forth, they get all jammed up with metals and chemicals and so on. Now, the C60 comes along as an antioxidant, and it cleans out all this material. Or if it can't tell that cell to clean out that material, so it works like glutathione in that regard, only then it dumps all of the waste and recharges itself and goes and attacks at another blockage point. So C60 is really good on that. This is the iodine. And I just choose to absorb iodine on my wrist. I don't take it in oral forms or whatever. So no, I'm not turning jaundice. And we're just now fading on a niacin flush. So yeah, I'm a redneck at the moment. Anyway, though, so C60 comes in and cleans all these things out, or it tells the cell to die, just bust up and get reabsorbed by the body. So when you do take C60, there's this period of time when you think, oh my God, I'm starting to waste away. And what's happened is a large number of cells that are senescent and can't function because of this issue here, or because the mitochondria in the middle of the cell down in here that actually does the spark and creates the energy is a worn out little reactor. And so the C60 tells those cells to, hey, you know, step off, guys, your time is done. Thanks for the effort. We're going to recycle you. And so C60 is good in that way, and that's actually what it does with the macular degeneration, because the macular degeneration is an optical version where light is actually just unable to be properly perceived because of these kind of blockage sorts of issues, right? And so what C60 does there for macular degeneration that's like age-induced is that it goes through as an antioxidant, cleans up these cells or tells them to kick on. And you get new stem cells created to replace them. Now, stem cells, when they're created, go through a transition phase, and stem cells themselves can become cancerous if you're, you know, jammed with radiation or something at the time and you got a lot of stem cells, because they're flexible. And so they can get damaged really easily as they make this transition into whatever kind of cell they're going to make, right? And so the issue with C60 is that it actually gets rid of all of these damaged cells pretty continuously, and upgrades the number of stem cells you have by getting rid of bad cells, thus inducing a replacement cycle. And so you sort of like lean your whole system down of polluted cells. And so you feel a lot better. It's kind of like knocking all the carbon out of the engine of a car and cleaning it up, or cleaning up the chimney on your grill or something, right? Everything's just going to function a lot better. The C60 does the macular degeneration in the same sort of a way, but what I think happened with myself was that I was so wasted and so polluted because of the long-term undiagnosed cancer that basically until that cancer was done with and remediated, all those issues resolved, the C60 wasn't able to properly address the eye issues. So I'm wearing these now because they're blue blockers, and I don't want to induce any more of these kind of cell issues in my eye through the reaction to harsh blue light. And it's not the blue light per se that's causing the issue. It's that our bodies are keyed in to produce certain kinds of reactions to blue light that are not harmonious to long-term use of those cells. It actually causes strain in the cells because of its frequency for some reason. But I can read this. I can read it actually better without the glasses. But that font is just too small. So it's been slow going with Boscovich. But man, that is just an amazing thinker. This guy was incredible in his prescience. He actually anticipated computers that would solve his arithmetic problems and wrote about it. And he made notes to readers basically in there saying, hey, you know, if you're reading this and you have the means, look what you could do with this information being able to be aggregated in a way I'm not able to do it now. So he anticipated that there would be all these different layers of rules that you could extract about the ether and how it all works and this sort of thing that he just was not able to do observationally with the mathematics that he was able to perform because of the limitations of the arithmetic. You know, I mean, it was in a time where you couldn't add that many numbers in a day, whereas we can do it like that with the computers. So I don't know what's going on there. Hang on, guys. I'm not very chat savvy. And let's see. Go ahead. I don't care. Yeah, C60, carbon 60. Yeah, C60 is, you can make your own, especially if you're away from the sources of the C60. It does not make sense to transport the oil that you could obtain locally. You're much better off buying the raw material and setting up to manufacture your own. And so, you know, it works well. The C60 itself, being a huge antioxidant, helps to prevent rancid oils, although it can happen that you can put C60 into an oil that's already started bacterial degradation, and then it's not going to stop that, but it would prevent that if you had pristine oil to put it into. So I agree, it makes a lot of sense to make your own. I use the stuff that Ken Schwartz produces at C60 Purple Power. I've used that in preference to a lot of the others just because it's been harmonious to my system going through all this cancer process. And I've had to take a lot of stuff experimentally looking for remedies to the various different aspects of cancer, right? I didn't mean to get into that here. I was going to actually do some quick tests and stuff. I happened to get a little bit of time here unexpectedly. Didn't mean to get into all of this, but you know, it's still reasonably pertinent. Some things I've found that don't work are the GC math. Unless you can inject it, unless you can get an injectable form, it's not worth wasting your money on. So some of the things that are available out there also have some effectiveness. And so, for instance, coffee enemas, as much as they're bizarre in their approach to treatment, have a range of efficacious use, only though to strip toxins out, right? But you could do it without the coffee part of it. Yeah, the coffee has some small benefit, but you don't need the coffee part. And in order for it to be maximally beneficial, you would have to have the heavy metals removed down into the colon. Not necessarily guaranteed to happen. The problem with all of this, well, so the things that jam up our cell problems or cause our cell problems are frequently the metals because they have a high electrical charge. So cancer at its core level is an electrical charge issue. And what happens within the cells is the metals, because they have an ability to hold a charge almost as great as carbon, will attach themselves to the cell walls and not be able to be like spit out or sucked in all the way. So everything gets jammed up. Well, C60 in this regard hauls down hydrogen. It's got its own charge issues. It comes on in and helps clear things out electrically. And so that really aids the whole process of the cell regeneration. Uh, in in dealing with cancer, it appears that it's a cell issue or a charge issue as well. That because of the heavy metals causing the cells to mutate and these other things, and radiation causing charge changes within your cells, you end up with mutations. And if you're unlucky, the the mutated cells will attach and then get their own blood supply, and off you go with a cancer, and then you're kind of screwed, right? Um, and so anyway, though, the C60 works against that. It doesn't stop cancer once you've got it, but it works against the new cancers potentially being able to get robust enough to gain a blood supply, because what it does is it alters the charge around them and fundamentally does this apoptosis stuff, the killing of the cell, by clearing out the stuff that initially caused its mutation, or finding out when it goes there to do that, that it won't happen. And so it induces apoptosis in that cancer cell, and the cancer cell kills itself. And so at that level, at the level of the cancer embryonic something. So the CEA test, which is the one that the oncologists rely on for internal cancers, that is to say non-visible cancers in their assay, that test assumes that everybody's walking around with 3 cancer cells in them at any given time that can be assayed through this test. Now, I don't like the test. It is bogus as shit because it relies on an individual's eyes. They've got to be well trained. Their eyes can't be wonky one day because they're hungover and they're a little dehydrated, because they could miss all kinds of stuff. The results vary. If you take the same sample and give it to 4 different labs, you're going to get 4 different results. So it's not the best of tests. And it assumes a baseline of 3 cancer cells is okay. And the fact of the matter is, we're probably creating cancer cells continuously. And it is up to our body to repel these and not allow them to do harm. So we have a method for getting rid of them, which is this one gene. But if that gene is damaged, your ability to shed cancer cells is damaged. We have the ability to not allow them to, cancer cells to adhere to intercellular tissues, because basically all cancer cells try and worm their way through these intercellular tissues in order to get a blood supply. And if they're not able to do that, they pass on and die. They may form a polyp temporarily, and that's what has boosted the colonoscopy business fantastically, is that they're in there snipping off some of these things in colonoscopies. But there's no guarantee or there's no surety or certainty on any of these polyps that they were not going to fall off on their own, and that you might not replace it tomorrow. So what if he snips off 11 precancerous polyps, but you come back 3 days later and you've got 13, because you're continually forming them. If you're forming them that fast, you may have issues. Other things about precancerous polyps, I didn't mean to get into this sort of thing, is that you can't tell them from scurvy. Okay, so there's no way in an analysis in a lab to tell a scurvy cell from a precancerous polyp cell. They look identical. So are these precancerous polyps really scurvy? Local isolated areas of scurvy? You can have that. You can have tissues that are responding to scurvy because your body's not able to provide them enough vitamin C. And so this makes one wonder if Linus Pauling was quite correct, that if you took enough vitamin C, and he was missing one other aspect, which is the hyaluronic acid. That's the stuff that they put into makeup so it'll absorb really quickly and aid the skin, right? But you can take that in a capsule form and take vitamin C, and those are the 2 major components of your intercellular cement, the stuff that glues you together. If you got really good intercellular cement, these cancer cells are going to run into it and fall off. So, so I bitch and moan about a lot of this. I'm biased. I'll tell you that right up front, biased about the allopaths, because they're really stupid, dumb fucks and never found cancer, even though I had all of the, Nadia's with us. She's the a spy for the Pleiadian Empire. Gotta watch out what you say around her. Anyway, so yeah, so I bitch and moan about the allopaths because they don't know what the hell they're doing, and they don't make allowances for obvious kind of things. So here's the issue with like in a section, right, for colon cancer. Let's just say that your colon is shaped like a circle and they're running their little scope through it. Your problem is you think that's what the colon looks like, but from their viewpoint, it might be very flat. So they're running their scope through this. It might be dimpled and they're running their scope in here. And the problem is that this little thing right up here is a cancer cell that has already gone through the intestinal lining, has taken root and gotten a blood supply on the other side. And all they're going to see is smooth wall tissue on that side. So colonoscopies don't do much for finding established cancers. And they say it takes 5 years for a cancer to grow. And that's really bogus because most of the guys that are in their later part of their life, right, 40s and on, males, colon cancer, may have had a cancer growing 15 or 20 or 30 years unnoticed, simply because there is a very large category of colon cancers are in males are very slow growing. And so you get these large masses like they cut out of meat, and you just don't know. Anyway, liposomal vitamin C so that you can get good absorption. So if you're trying to absorb vitamin C, you can't rely on these capsules that say 1,000 milligrams, because standard stuff, you're only going to absorb 200. In order to get anything serious, you've got to go to liposomal, and then you'll get 800. You'll be able to absorb 800. So I take 4 grams a day of vitamin C without fail. I take the hyaluronic acid, and then also I can bring up this kind of an introduction. I'm going to make a commercial about it, like, you know, a script and put on like a structured shirt or something. I don't know. I'll do something there for my new product because we're getting close to phase 2. So I'm going into the supplement business. This is a supplement I've been using for over a year. I created the formula myself. I created this formula based on fusion of traditional Chinese medicine, ancient medicine understanding, Ayurvedic medicine components that I've analyzed those components with modern knowledge. And then I fused it with some other stuff that they didn't know about back then. So some supplements like that are known to produce specific effects. And so my supplement that I'm bringing out, we've run into an issue because of the nature of the ingredients are so unusual in the supplement business for this kind of a deal. And our goal is to have little packets like you might see, you know, the stevia or a little bigger than that or something, right? They've got to hold about 5 grams of this material. And so it'll be one of these little envelopes. And so you'll be able to get like a month supply of these envelopes, and you'd use 1 a day. And I'm going to have variants of them because the base formula allows for specific variations for specific subpopulations, specific needs. So we're after we've got the launch, after we've got our excipients, our flow, we have an issue right now where the materials glom together because I've had to get some stuff from, I mean, this is truly planetary. Okay, we're getting materials from all around the planet here that are very specific. And some of them come from plants out of the desert. And so these are hydrophobic. So they really want to absorb water, which is an inherent part of what needs to be done within this particular supplement when you take it, at the time you take it, for the reasons you're going to take it. And anyway, though, but that makes getting this stuff into the packet a real bitch. And so we're lucky because the traditional flow agent, the excipient control agent, you know, that tells the material how fast to flow, is magnesium based, and I needed magnesium in my mix. So what we're doing at the moment is to try and figure out which exact kind of a chelated magnesium that is both best for the human body and as a flow agent can be used. And boy, this shit is tricky. So we're going to have an initial run. It won't be that large. I think maybe we'll be lucky to run 40,000 packets because we've been having to draw samples all the time from our big grind. So basically, you get all these materials from all around the planet, and you shove them into a giant a UBC, a universal bulk container, and you ship it over to a grinder. They use these special stainless steel things to grind the crap out of it. and mix it all up for you so that it's ubiquitously spread, it's harmonious, there's the same amount of material in each sample and so on. That takes forever to get all the stuff right. But once you've got it, then you just punch it back into the control system next time you need to run a batch. But like I say, we'll be yeah, it's all electricity. It's all charge. Anyway, though, so like I say, we're going to be lucky to get 40,000 units out of this first batch. So they'll sell real quick, because what we're going to do is to try and package them in 1 week or 30-day supplies to eliminate the amount of handling that the company that's partnering with me will have to do in the fulfillment. And then I'll make a commercial about it. I'll show you the little packets and to describe all of this kind of stuff. But I can tell you what it does and why I like it so much. It's a sleep product. It's a sleep aid, a true sleep aid, but it's not so it's a soporific in that regard. It makes your body prepared to go to sleep. It triggers all of the mechanisms within your body for a good healing sleep. But it's not a drug, okay? It does not drug you to go to sleep. You can take the stuff, go out and do business, whatever, it doesn't matter. It won't put you to sleep in the middle of the day. It'd be very unwise to take it then, because none of the other constituents are going to work for you, because here's the deal. Turns out when our bodies only heal when we sleep, right? So it's like, who knew? Okay, so you get a cut, you get a bash, you get a crash in the middle of the day, your body will apply triage kind of things. It'll inflame it so it can't move that broken bone and all of this kind of stuff, but it's not going to start to knit that broken bone back together again until you start sleeping. And then you'll notice that, boy, you really need to sleep. And then you need to sleep more, like on the second day and the third day and fourth day, as you get into these healing processes. And that's because the body needs to get you into that state to withdraw the energy from your brain and all this other stuff to knit your cells all back together to get you back up on your feet again. And it's a nice system. It makes sense. And so I'm sitting there as a cancer recovery guy, and I've wasted down to nothing. So I was down to 138 in my clothes, 138 pounds. Had been as high as 180 at one point, and that was all pretty much muscle in my early 40s. So I had a low body mass then. Still had the cancer at that stage. It was really starting to kick in, so I was trying vegetarianism, anything to deal with issues that the allopaths could not resolve. So I lose all this weight finally over all this period of time. I'm dying. I go through the cancer removal and all that kind of stuff, and I'm left with a very shattered body, not only from the cancer, but also from the cut it out part, right? But prior to the cut it out part, I'd lost so much muscle mass, I was just literally a shadow of myself. And so I reasoned, once my brain started coming back from all of the, which took months, I kid you not. Surgery was in July. My brain, I think, really came back to me the following March. It took that long to get rid of the residual effects of the anesthesia, the shock, and all the other chemicals and crap they try and shove in you. And I was finally able to purge all of that. I fired the oncologist in January, I think, late December of January, and then got onto it on myself. But I started being able to get some of this reasoning back and started thinking about things in December. And so I started making, at that point, I had a big insight that I needed to aid my body while it was going through the healing process every night. I still had responsibilities here. My wife's not healthy. I have to do all the stuff around the house. So I had to get up and do stuff every day. So it wasn't like I could deliberately nap all the time, although I had been napping frequently up until December. Anyway, so I come up with this formula, and it evolved between December and March, and it was based on an older sleep formula I had prepared for some people who had children that were hyperactive and couldn't go to sleep necessarily at any given time at night, right? And that's dodgy, that's tricky trying to do it for them, but they were close to me, they were neighbors, so I could monitor the results and talk to them every day and so on. And I was able to come up with some stuff that helped the guy, but that's a secondary issue. Anyway, though, so I come up with this formula, and I finally had it really solid by March. Had been using it for months, and a solid form then, knew that it was working out, and because I could tell, because my testosterone levels were going up, my energy levels were going up in the morning, because you get up in the morning after the cancer, and it's like, fuck, it took forever to get key energy up in order to get moving again, almost as bad as having the cancer itself. That's why for those first few months, I wasn't sure I was going to survive. Because of the ability, the necessary, or the need to generate this key energy, right? Bear in mind, I lost a lot of intestines, and I had a tumor that was, well, it was as big as my palm and almost 1.5 inches thick. Truly had blocked totally obstructed anything down in there. Anyway, though, so I come up with a formula, it starts to work, I know it's working, and I start tweaking it. I get it really solid by March. Then I start making the contacts. We end up with the company, and they've been working on the process through late spring and summer and fall as we get moving towards producing this. And then we run into this particular issue. The grind was good. I really liked it. I was actually starting to say, oh, well, now my evil plot, which was I didn't want to have to mix the stuff up every night. I wanted the convenience of a packet that I could just tear open and use, right? Because I've got all these little bottles and stuff, and it was just kind of a pain in the butt to have to go through and do all of this. Now, the material is intended to be used in milk of any kind, nut milk, cow milk, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. And it's because you need the lipids, you need the fats in there, really. You can do it in water, but it won't be quite as effective, nor will it taste as good. It'll have real good mouthfeel. I've tested it in the water from our first test, and it's good. I really like the grind, but then we've run into the problem getting the stuff into the packets. We have a couple of more options. We're still looking at that rather than alter the mix because it is so good. Because there's we have the technical aspects of getting the material into the mix, all the various different parts and problems. Then we have the other technical aspects of getting the mix into the tube, but it still has to taste good. And then it still has to have that intense purity that does the work for you. But it's been marvelous. I've been able to, I'm back up to about 162 without even working at it. I've reduced my fat levels so that 162 now is seriously back towards muscle, where when I was 138, there was a lot of fat there because I was on a vegetarian diet, a very high sugar diet as demanded by cancer. And so I put on that kind of fat you see on men that's very soft, right? It was all sugar fats. And, because the liver takes all the sugar out of your system and puts it into the fat cells, what the cancer didn't want. And so I had to go through this transformation, and I go through all of these problems, come up through all of this, and I have this mix now that I passed out. Okay, so I passed it out to a bunch of the kids, these 40 and 50-year-old guys, right? They like it. They like it a lot. I've got a bunch of guys using it that are in their 20s. I'm getting really tired of mixing up all these batches every week for these people. So I'll be glad when we finally get the excipient flow agent control thing fixed, and I can just say, here you go. Here's a box of the shit, that sort of thing. But it's not addictive. It doesn't have any hangover effects. I've been able to drink wine. Because I'm restricting sugar, I drink a little bit of wine. In order to aid the stomach, get the resveratrol and all of that, but also to aid the digestion because I'm on a high protein and high fat diet at the moment. And so it doesn't interact with that. You have a nice, pleasant sleep. You wake up feeling good. There's the continuing buildup of positive effects in that I'm getting my muscles and everything back into position again in terms of what they used to look like. So I'm very pleased. I think in another year, I might even be able to approach what I was like in my 40s. And I was a mean son of a bitch then. So, I could do some serious, I did a 35-mile bike ride in my 40s, just on one Saturday, which blew most of the Saturday. Came back and we had 2 major trees fall. Then I spent the next 6 hours sawing the things up with a big chainsaw. Didn't bug me a bit to extend that kind of energy. So Anyway, so this formula, I think, is along with the peptides and the vitamins and minerals and all the C60 and all of that is really working wonderfully. And I've gotten my muscles back. Every day I get a little bit more in the biceps and all the laterals especially. That was interesting to see those come on up. Anyway, so that should be out maybe a month, and I'll make a commercial about it. I'll tell everybody about it and point to a website. You know, y'all go over there to buy the stuff and try it out. We're going to try and set it up for 7-day packets, I think, so you can see if it's useful for you, so you don't have to have like a big investment in it at all. One ingredient in it does have anti-cancer properties at a minor level, but we're not intending anything in there towards that end. One ingredient is well known to produce 5 times the regular output of human growth hormone, and I can testify that indeed this is working that way, and I've had no issues whatsoever at 67 years of age for use with this material in over a year now. And in fact, it's actually working. I've been able to grow muscle mass again, which is very difficult at my age. You get into your 60s, you'll see how it is to try and gain muscle back up again. Nothing like in your 20s or 30s. But as I say, I'm doing well. The anti-cancer stuff is working quite well. But like I say, I'm also on a zero sugar diet, right? I'm essentially probably never going to eat sugar again in a raw white form. I'll buy it for the hummingbirds, but that's about it. Anyway, so I only have a little bit more time to use here. Looks like it's going to work. I wanted to be able to have, this is through Zoom. I wanted to be able to have participants, you know, webinar kind of stuff. And I didn't want to do a handcraft thing, and I'll investigate other live stream to see what's available. We're going to be doing fun with magnets kind of things, like with our little critters here, so that we'll be able to understand and expand upon the ideas that Boscovich presents us. And he was a pretty smart fellow. He actually said that he actually anticipated our being able to extract information from even visual devices like this. This is actually ferrofluid in basically a little tiny jar with a lid. There's a magnet on it, so that the ferrofluid wants to stay in that position. The ferrofluid by its nature is iron, so it's becoming magnetized over time with the magnets that we're using, and thus is only a partial indicator of what's actually going on with the magnetic fields, because the little tiny iron particles are participating in creating their own magnetic fields, which disturbs, you know, it fuzzes everything up, right? So as a visual indicator, as a toy, it's really cool. But it's not a really accurate measure of what's going on within the magnetic fields in real time. It gives us some indication. These spikes you see here are not actually the magnetic field points themselves. They're really the space created between the magnetic field lines. So the way that we understand the world from Boscovich's viewpoint, which we can analyze, replicate, mathematically exploit, so might as well use it, and you don't have to get into all that horrific math from quantum physics. But we have this thing called a dielectric. It's a plane. Okay, so we can say that down here is matter, and up here is electricity or energy. You know, this is energy. This is the dielectric. And this is, so matter comes basically out of the dielectric. Now, the dielectric is within the field, and the field has within it space. And all the matter down here fits in the space. But we know that matter and space are conjunct. You know, you have the vacuum that the planets are floating in, and the vacuum is not separate. It arises along with the planets and stuff. But what's really interesting about Boscovich's understanding is that the way that the dielectric is being exploited, there are many other ways to exploit this boundary layer that separates energy from matter. And Einstein was stupid and thought his conclusion was stupid. And he thought you could extract energy back into the dielectric or out of matter into this universe. And it doesn't work that way. All energy is up in the dielectric plane. All matter is down in here. And we can operate within this boundary layer and extract motive energy in this in the materium where all the matter is. We can't really put shit up into the dielectric, but we can prove, having read through several hundred of these articles into each article or each paragraph in Boscovich is numbered and is a separate article. And I can prove conceptually that the detonation of what we call a nuclear bomb, which is actually an electric bomb that separates the electrical binding components of matter and lets all the matter fly apart, those actually disturbed the dielectric plane. So if you had a civilization that was able to use the dielectric plane in a meaningful fashion in ways we can't, that is to say, doing more with it than simply extracting electricity, they might have seen, they might have experienced or felt a massive implosion kind of thing, disturbance in the dielectric plane itself that propagates up into the field where their machinery and stuff is able to sample all of this, and they recognize that they're also matter, of course, the people that are sensing all of that. And they were probably able to say, uh-oh, those fuckers did it, and they came and saw us. It strikes me that an electric bomb, a nuclear bomb, would so disrupt the dielectric plane that it would be able to be ascertained across what we think of as hundreds of millions of light years. And it would be easily ascertained at very high levels of intensity. And so it would stand out like you're walking down the road one day and a semi-truck lands 20 feet behind you, having fallen from several hundred feet up. That kind of an explosion would instantly become part of your reality when we explode an electric bomb here. So that would certainly draw attention, no question about it. Anyway, the dielectric plane, I'm really keyed in on dealing with other aspects of this. Okay, so getting back to our little critter here with the little spikes, I'm going to put up my microscope that attaches to a computer and see if I can get lights on here so we can examine this better. And I'm working with some people to try and create a gaseous, a gas form of a viewer for magnetism. But basically those spikes are the valleys here. So actually, let's look at it. The spikes are upside down relative to this. So these spikes here are actually little vortices that are created by this effect. And so those vortices are all representing the same level of magnetic force. This line being the plane of the dielectric. As magnetism appears in matter, it will take one of two forms, repulsion or attraction. You know, they repel each other or they attract each other, right? And so all of these being on the same side here could be all attraction, or they could be all repulsion if they were up here on this side. You know, so depending on which side of whether it's a north or south pole on the magnet, you're going to get a different level of effect. And this is where Boscovich's genius really came in. That son of a bitch analyzed down. I mean, this guy thought about it. Or he was, like I say, a true mind out of time, somebody hundreds of years in the future that somehow got sent back and got stuck and had nothing better to do than describe the world this way. And it was just absolutely brilliant. I shouldn't put charge, or I should put, because this is actually it's not electrically charged in that regard, okay? So that's an interesting aspect of this, that when we deal with these magnetic influences, we're actually dealing with advancing or retarding or compressing. Okay, so it's rarefaction or compression, it's advancing or it's repulsion. And it's the same force, but it behaves differently, ever so slightly, based on which side of the dielectric plane it's emerging on. And we also have to understand that this is not a two-dimensional sine wave. This is a curving spiral vortex out of there. And when the thing curves over onto this half, it's an attractive force. But when that same force curves over to the other half of the dielectric plane, it's a repulsive force. And we can take advantage of this because it is just incredible. The compressive force, for instance, these are neodymium magnets that have got that ferrofluid all over them. And these are the repulsive side. That's the attraction side. Let me split it apart. Well, I split some of my magnets. I got tons of them, so it's not a problem. All right, there we go. Okay, so now I'm not particularly weak, and I am unable to compress those magnetic force lines enough to touch the two repulsive ends of the magnet. No matter how I were to structure that, these little tiny magnets that, you know, they're smaller around than a dime they're all dirty. Anyway, I'm unable to compress them. It's not going to happen. Christ. Hang on a second. I got ferrofluid everywhere. That stuff is just wicked, and I got it all over my screen now. And of course, it's going to want to glom onto the screen because it's magnetized. That ferrofluid, it's really nice. It's a good indicator. It's a very good indicator. Don't get me wrong, but it has tendency to jump out of the container to the magnet before you're aware it's going to do that. It's like, oh shit! And then your magnets are all covered with it, and then you get the stuff all over your hands, and it's all over the, you know, everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to have to bust out here and get some other things done. But we're set up now. I know it'll work. I can set up these live streams as we're going to go forward. Once I get to certain points, what I'm going to plan on doing is to write stuff up in a patent, submit it, allow for the submission to take place, get the returns back so I know they've got it, and then I'll come on out and talk about it. The reason I'm doing that is I want to avoid a situation where I come up with a good idea that then someone else, if I were to just talk about it, goes on out and patents it and then restricts me from using my own good idea later on. I actually knew a guy in Missouri that had happened to, who was an inventive little mechanic. He had a shop, he just invented shit, and he repaired buses and crap. And he came up with this method that aided the brakes and stuff on school buses, and GMC patented it out from underneath him, and he couldn't make it anymore. They were the manufacturers of the school buses at the time. So anyway, it was just a life lesson I took to heed. I don't necessarily want to make any money out of this. I want to make myself a floating RV, and so that's my goal, is anti-gravity and that kind of stuff. Nothing too big, just a little floating RV. You know. Anyway, so no, I recognize the hubris of it all. Trying to think I'm going to do this, but I got nothing better to do. You know, the fight with the blue chickens is winding down as they reveal themselves to be acting under the principle of, butthead business management. Speaking of which, I'll talk to that real quick before I leave. 16-second delay. So, but it's incredible. I cannot believe that video that David Wilcock did, where he says, hey, let's all scam IRS. Let's create a charity only for the purpose of eliminating the payment of taxes. It doesn't work that way. It's not supposed to anyway. I think that might be illegal. And then there's, all the fraud around the Pete Peterson stuff. You notice that Wilcock doesn't talk about the nature of the GoFundMe and him having this little hissy fit online or meltdown, saying the FBI is going to bulldoze all of his inheritance from Pete Peterson stuff, right? And he just deals with some of the other transactional issues. So, did was he able to ever obtain a power of attorney from Pete Peterson if Pete Peterson was under the guardianship of his sister? If he did so obtain a power of attorney, is it valid? Would he have run into the nursing home saying, basically, who the fuck are you trying to get one of our patients to sign documents, especially one of our patients that's under the guardianship of somebody that is outside the nursing home? You know, so a lot of his story doesn't really mesh. There's a lot of stuff that just does not make a lot of sense. And he was so stupid as to, in my opinion, you know, it was a stupid act to try and use the Edge of Wonder guy's video channel to alibi his participation in all of that, right? So who knows how it's all going to go out, but it looks like the issues that where I was getting hassled by these by the butt-headed behavior of these individuals is going to be less going forward in the future. So I'm moving on. I've been just tired of dealing with them. But because of the nature of being trapped by regulators, which are now off my back, the grand juries and stuff have expired. They're all out. So I'm off the hook on all of that, unless something else comes up. But in any event, at this stage, I can talk about stuff. I don't have to worry about any of these kind of issues. The blue chicken people are over there rapidly shooting themselves in the foot. You know, James, I see fairies and ascended masters. Gilliland should be lucky to get out of Australia since he's claiming that he stopped the fires with his presence and his qigong bringing down the rain. I mean, Jesus Christ, the ego on these individuals. But in any event, things have shifted. You know, what shifted everything was the Space Force, the real Space Force, because now all the attention is going to start going that way. It's going to leave Jordan Sather behind. It's going to leave Corey Good and all that bullshit behind, because who needs his stories when they're doing real shit? And none of this real shit, no matter how David and Corey are going to try and spin the narrative, none of the real shit the Space Force is going to do is ever going to touch these buggers, right? They're, you know, the Space Force ain't going to be calling David in to learn about the reptilians. They're not going to be talking to Corey about how to design anti-Draco armaments, you know? So that kind of stuff is it's fading by the wayside. And so I can get on to some of this other, which I find quite fascinating because, well, get into that some other time. I got to get moving here. It wasn't intended to be this long. I was just going to get involved a little bit, but the product ought to be out in a couple of months. It really aids people. One of the things I've found is that the sleep is better, but also you have the ability to deal with a lot of the jangly energies, the unknown energies from space, because of the nature of the material that we're dealing with in this mix. So I'll have that out in a couple of months, and you can try that and see what it's like. And we've got some other stuff in development. Got to keep busy, you know. And don't have my floaty RV thing to go truck about. So anyway, gonna have to shut off the meeting here. And thanks for stopping by, people. I don't know how many people got involved in the chat. I'm new to this stuff, so yeah. So the C60 you can buy online and as a powdery kind of substance. I would get it from SES. He's one of the original bulk manufacturers, Chris Bars, I think. So get the bulk stuff, and you can mix it up yourself. They'll mail the packages of the C60 to you, and you can put it together yourself. Really remarkable. You know, it does the work of glutathione, but a glutathione or vitamin C, even for that matter, comes into contact with something it needs to deal with, it's also done. It expends itself in getting that particular task done. C60 does not. It resets itself and goes on. So check it all out. Yeah, Chris Burrs. And thanks, guys. I'm going to try and do something like this on as time permits. These next few weeks are going to be really busy, so I won't be able to schedule anything. but I've been talking with people about just that, about scheduling something on a regular basis to explore the Boscovich, let's build a floating RV here out of our, whatever kind of junk vehicle you got happen to have sitting around. Let's flubberize. So anyway, so it's kind of fun, and it's fun stuff to mess with, and we're actually making progress. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it. It's going to be really interesting to see how all of the blue chicken stuff fades away in time, and what happens as the Space Force really starts getting moving. Interesting fucking year already, and we're only 19 days into it. So goodbye, guys. Talk to you later.